Hello, Caleb. Dad again. I'm here to read another chapter from our Christmas story this year, the Christmasaurus. And this time we're on chapter 4, which is Inside the Egg. Now, again, Pikachu's here to listen to the story whilst I'm away from you. And I hope you've got your wee detective Pikachu with you as well. And he can listen to the story as well. And they can tell each other all about it when they get back together. Now, let the story begin. Inside the egg. Santa sat on the egg day and night. It was very uncomfortable, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the elves made him breakfast, brunch, elevensie, lunch, tea, dinner, and supper every day, and delivered it to him on a tray with a song, of course. They even wheeled his television into the makeshift egg warming room, the airing cupboard, so that Santa could watch his favourite Christmas films, which were mostly about him. How vain Santa. Most of the egg defrosted beneath his enormous backside. Occasionally the egg would wobble a little, and the longer Santa perched on top of it, the more and more it wobbled. Santa knew this was a good sign, that his warm bottom was doing the trick. But time was not on the egg's side. Every day that passed, Christmas was a day closer. How exciting. Come on, egg wobbler, whatever you are. If you don't get a shift on and hatch by Christmas Eve, then I'll have no choice but to fly off and leave you. And I'd hate to give up on you, but the children need me. It's my duty, you see, Santa whispered worriedly as the clock struck midnight, signalling the end of another no-show day from whatever was inside the egg. And at that moment, Santa had an idea. Maybe the egg would hatch faster if the airing cupboard was even warmer. Snozzle Trump, whack up the central heating to full, blast it once, Santa ordered. And after a few hours, the ranch felt like a sauna. Sprout even cut the leg off his trousers and turned them into shorts. It wasn't long before all the elves thought that was a pretty nifty idea and followed suit. And for the first time in history, the North Pole gift shop in the elf city started selling sweater vests instead of sweaters, and snapback caps instead of thick woolly elf hats. It was the hottest Santa's ranch had ever been. Santa stripped right down to his stripy red and white undervest and his best Christmas underpants, the red ones with the white snowflakes on them that played jingle bells when you pulled them up. Amazing. I wish I had those. He was so hot and sticky, but he didn't mind. He would do whatever it took to get the thing inside the egg out safely. All this time, Santa and the elves had been trying to guess what was wobbling around inside the egg. Some elves guessed it was a bunch of big bunnies, others thought it would be a large polar bear. There were lots of stupid, nonsensical elf guesses, and none of them got it right. But of course, they hadn't read the start of this story, as you have. They didn't know what it was. I'm sure you've guessed by now that this egg was the exact same special egg that I told you about at the beginning. So unlike Santa and the elves, you know exactly what is inside this egg. Do you remember what it is, Pikachu? Do you remember all the way back past couple of days? I think it's a dinosaur. Soon, there was only one chocolate left in Santa's advent calendar, and that meant it was Christmas Eve. How exciting. Look, there's Big Santa. Big Santa in his pajamas or his underwear. Of course, he's eating cookies. I love cookies. Come on, egg. There's not much time, sighed Santa, putting the smooth shell under his bottom. All the North Pole elves and their families had crowded into the egg warming room to show their support. Come on, egg. Some had brought candles, others had brought little electric heaters from their homes. They all sat together around the egg and sang Christmas carols all day long, trying to encourage the egg wobbler to wobble its way out. What a fantastic way to spend Christmas Eve. After a little while, Snozzle Trump inspected the egg, running his hands over every inch of its shell. When he had finished, he turned to face the waiting crowd with a sorrowful expression on his sweaty face. "The egg that sits behind my back has not one single hatching crack." Santa let out a loud sigh. He knew the time had come for him to step down from the egg and get ready for crack. A great noise echoed around the room. All the elves jumped to their feet. "Shh, everyone," hissed Santa. From on top of the egg, he put his hand down and felt the smooth shell. He ran his hand along the shiny surface, which was no longer cold and frozen, but actually quite warm. Suddenly, he stopped moving his hand. He'd felt something. He moved his finger back a few millimeters, and there it was. A very thin, but very definite crack in the egg shell. "It's hatching time!" Santa bellowed. A hushed excitement spread like magic throughout the room as Santa carefully climbed down from the egg and stood with all the elves watching. Then, out of nowhere, a very deep rumble could be heard. It was a most peculiar sound, almost like a rumble of a distant train, or like a very loud, very hungry tummy. The rumble was coming from inside the egg. Santa looked at the 8 elves who had found the egg, who were all looking excitingly nervous. Or maybe they were nervously excited. It's so hard to tell. The rumble grew louder. The egg started to wobble. Suddenly that tiny crack broke open a little more. There was a big, deep, dark crack, which you could almost see into. All the elves held hands very tightly. Snozzletrump let out a nervous snozzle-trump. And just as suddenly as it all started, everything seemed to stop. The rumble stopped. The wobbling stopped. There were no more cracks appearing in the egg. Just silence. Everyone in the room was still, except for Santa. He took one brave step forward and peered into the shell. He couldn't see much. It was all very dark, but it looked like there was something shiny inside. As Santa leant in for a closer look, that shiny something blinked. It blinked. "It's an eye!" grasped Santa. And the eye was looking out at everyone in the room. Santa almost jumped out of his skin, which made all the elves jump out of their skins. And once they'd all got back in their skins, everyone laughed nervously at themselves for being such scaredy cats. Then, that's when it happened. Crack boom! Santa and the elves dived for cover as the egg exploded into a billion sparkly pieces, showering the room in shimmering shell that fell like glitter dust all over their heads. Slowly, Santa got to his feet and sneezed off some of the shell dust from his moustache and beard. He brushed glitter from his underpants and wiped his full moon spectacles, and when he put them back on his nose, he couldn't quite believe what his eye saw. In the middle of the room, where the egg stood moments ago, was something impossible, but this was the North Pole, where anything is possible. "What is it?" cried the elves. Then they heard a roar. "Well, bless my crinkles," said Santa, with a tear in his eyes. "It's a baby dinosaur." Wow. A baby dinosaur in the North Pole. And that's the end of that chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a really good chapter. Though there wasn't much singing, and I'm getting used to the singing in these stories. But, much like yourself, I think Pikachu really enjoyed that story. So, definitely time to go to sleep. Night-night, Kaylin.